Should this sort of new group, Bad English, be put in jail? Well, whether you think so or not, jail is where they're headed.
Bad English was a prominent rock supergroup that emerged in the late 80s, bringing together the musicians from two big bands, Journey and the Babies. Their brief time together gave the group a platinum record, several top 40 hits, but their second album became their undoing. Today, because you guys requested it, let's take a look at the rise and fall of Bad English. Bad English's formation has its roots in the breakup of Journey. Journey had established themselves as one of the most successful rock groups of the late 70s and 80s with a string of huge multi-platinum records. But by the middle of the 80s, the band was done. Health and interpersonal issues led to Journey taking a break. Guitarist Neil Schon told the Morning Call, Johnathan Cain, Steve Perry, and I sat down on the stock one day to talk about our future. Johnathan and I wanted to go on with Journey, but Steven didn't know what he wanted to do. We were thinking about continuing Journey with a new singer. I wanted to just start completely fresh. Before I go any further, guys, I do want to make it known that amongst all the interviews I read, there seems to be varying accounts of exactly how the band formed. But the most common story involves keyboardist Johnathan Cain touring with Michael Bolton in 1988. He was playing with Bolton, who was opening some shows for Heart that year. Cain expressed his desire to start a new band while backstage with Heart's then manager Trudy Green. Cain remarked to the Village Voice, "I miss the edge and rock and roll profile." Green suggested that Cain call up his pre-Journey bandmate from the Babies, bassist Ricky Phillips. The Babies are a British band that was initially around from the mid-70s until 1981, and they were best known for the tunes Isn't It Time and Every Time I Think of You, with each of them peaking at number 13 on the Hot 100 chart.
Isn't it time? It's your time to wait.
Phillips told Glide magazine that he and Cain got together, and he told me that Journey was going to split up, and he was about to announce this to the press, and he wanted something ready. Do you want to do something? I want to do something like we had when we were in the Babies together. And I said, yeah, I'm in, let's do it. As for how the Babies ended, Cain told the Los Angeles Daily News the breakup was more due to communication problems within management and the record company structure than personal things within the band. The band was young and naive. Frontman John Waite wanted to go solo, and that was the biggest reason. The duo thought about who they wanted to front the group. Cain had conveniently run into his old Babies frontman John Waite in New York, who was producing a record, and the two had dinner together. After the Babies fell apart, Waite pursued a solo career, nabbing a #1 hit in 1984 with Missing You. But in the years since, his solo career was floundering as the record label he was on by 1988 had folded. Waite told the LA Times that this was the last straw, adding, "I turned my back and faded off into the distance. I said, that's it, I can't deal with this crap." Waite opted to join the duo, and the trio soon got together in San Francisco to start writing songs, and Cain even called up his former Journey bandmate, guitarist Neil Schon, to help do some solos on the music. Schon, though, wasn't particularly interested in joining the group after the implosion of Journey. The trio had even considered a dozen or so guitarists to join the band, but they came up empty in their search. And while Schon still wanted to pursue a solo career, the music the trio were working on intrigued him so much that he finally decided to join the group. He soon placed a call to a session drummer he was working with at the time, Dean Castronovo, who funny enough would go on to play with Journey a decade or so later. The members of the Babies and Journey used to even tour together, and they formed their own Rat Pack on the road. Schon, Cain, and Waite used to hit up clubs and do a few Motown numbers on stage through the towns they passed in. The group called themselves Bad English. It came about during the recording sessions for their first album. The studio had a pool table where the members waged bets. It went from small things like who's going to pay for sushi or buy beer, all the way to betting $500 a game. During this time, keyboardist Johnathan Cain was reading a book about pool and saw the term English, which means to put a spin on a cue ball to set up your next shot. During his game, Cain kept hitting the cue ball incorrectly with it ending up in the pocket. So Cain came up with the term Bad English, and thus the band's name was born. The band was signed to Epic Records. The group wrote about 40 songs in the span of half a year, but not all of them were home runs, with Waite remarking. We wrote about 40 songs in 6 months, but a lot of them weren't very good at all. I kept trying to write stuff that would blow the roof off. It was a little like walking on thin ice. We didn't want to sound too much like one thing or another, Journey or John Waite, and I think we achieved that. It made the whole process interesting. Bad English offered a new beginning for Schon and Cain to maybe win over critics. Journey had long been criticized by industry publications like Rolling Stone for writing sleek, polished hits, specifically for top 40 radio like Don't Stop Believin' or Faithfully. The publications conveniently forgot that Schon was a member of the San Francisco blues scene in his teen years and played with Santana in the 70s. As for whether the musicians considered themselves a supergroup, Waite told the New York Times, "The supergroup thing, that's only people from the record company trying to get publicity. And once you've been successful in the past, there's certain backlash. People like to see you fall." It became customary in the late 80s for artists like Bon Jovi and Aerosmith to work with outside songwriters, and Bad English wasn't any different. While they did write a majority of their songs on their debut album, 2 of the songs were written with outside help. The album closer, Don't Walk Away, was written by Andy Hill and King Crimson lyricist Pete Sinfield. But the biggest hit of their career, When I See You Smile, was written by Diane Warren, who I actually talked about on my channel a couple of months ago or so. I'd done a video about Aerosmith's song, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, another song that she wrote that was a #1 hit. In fact, it was Aerosmith's only #1 hit of their career, and they didn't even write the song. If you guys are interested in that video, the link is down below. When I See You Smile became Bad English's signature hit as it topped the Hot 100 chart and peaked at number 10 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. The single was even certified gold. But not everyone in the group was happy with the song, as we'll discuss later. They had a few other hits on the album, including Price of Love, which peaked at number 5 on the Hot 100 chart, and number 38 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. Forget Me Not peaked at number 45 on the Hot 100 chart. Best of What I Got, the 4th single, peaked at number 9 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. They had another 2 charting singles, In Heaven Is a 4-Letter Word, which peaked at number 66 and number 12 on the Hot 100 and mainstream rock tracks chart. The final charting single, Possession, peaked at number 21 on the Hot 100 chart. Their debut album went on to be certified platinum. The band opted, though, to do smaller club shows to promote the first record, since they claimed that some established acts were too afraid to have them open since they'd likely be blown off stage. They did, however, later on in the tour play some bigger venues, touring with likes of Whitesnake and Jeff Beck. Despite their efforts to not sound like the Babies or Journey, the band were met with some negative reviews from critics. There was foreshadowing of what was to come. The band was pretty open about the friction in the group, with Waite telling the Citizen Voice, "I think it's been tricky because it's a volatile situation and we're all pretty headstrong, and I'm not the easiest person to get along with. Neil and I are very explosive people, and I don't think we can be pushed too far." As the group hit the studio for their second record, tensions arose within the band, primarily over creative disagreements and their management and their label pushing them to have a quick turnaround on their follow-up record. Despite these challenges, Bad English did end up releasing a second record titled Backlash in late August of 1991. By September, though, it was announced that Neil Schon was leaving the group. Without a tour or big promotional push for the album, the record stalled, failing to replicate the success of their debut. It peaked at number 72 on the Billboard charts. They did have one successful single, though, in Straight to Your Heart, which peaked at number 42 on the Hot 100 chart and number 9 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. Ricky Phillips wrote on his website that the group had in fact parted ways before the second record was even mixed. Waite told Songfacts, "It was fun for a year. I think the Journey guys wanted to be back in Journey, and I wanted to be back solo. We had a very valiant attempt at making a second record, but we weren't given enough time to write it. We tried and we almost made it. I remember one day going into the studio to sing and then going to work with 3 separate songwriters before I came into the studio. I was running on empty. Everybody in that band was trying their absolute hardest to come up with the goods, but you cannot write a record to follow up a #1 double platinum selling record in a month. You can't do it. The management thought we could do it, and it broke up the band. In a separate interview with XS Rock, he added that Johnathan Cain was also difficult to work with and wasn't as committed to the band as he should have been. Waite also claimed that the producer the band chose, Ron Nevison, didn't gel with the band. Waite still, however, sang his praises about the group's first album, but took issue with the #1 single, When I See You Smile, telling Classic Rock Revisited, "When I See You Smile, that was not what we should have been doing in bad English. We kind of owed the A&R guys a favor. I thought we would just cut it and tell them we at least tried, and then they would let us go our own way. When we recorded it, then it really did sound like a #1 hit. It went to #1 everywhere, and I have to ask, what is wrong with being #1? At the same time, it was the wrong song for the band to rest its career on." Cain echoed these comments, stating, "It really was the kiss of death for bad English. It was the end of us, you know. #1 pop song, see ya." Phillips gave an interview to Andrew McNeese where he gave his perspective on the breakup, stating, "Too many cooks, nobody was willing to bend anymore. Everyone forgot what the beauty of being in a band was all about. And at some point, there has to be some degree of democracy, or all parties have to agree that one person is the dictator. It can't be both, and when you've got 4 great writers, 1 band, someone's got to give." The band called it a day in 1991 and has never reunited. Waite has said in recent interviews that he's enjoying his career outside of the group and has no desire to reunite it. The members pursued other musical projects, with Journey reuniting in 1995 for a short-lived stint with frontman Steve Perry. The Babies, meanwhile, reunited in 2013 without Waite or bassist Ricky Phillips. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.
Should this sort of new group, Bad English, be put in jail? Well, whether you think so or not, jail is where they're headed. The band has announced that it's negotiating to play at least 3 concerts at women's prisons around the country sometime after the Christmas holidays. The idea belongs to singer John Waite, who's apparently developed a fascination of late with the heiress and former inmate Patty Hearst. Waite wants to meet Hearst and hopes to do so by inviting her to a Bad English show at the Pleasanton, California Women's Correctional Facility, where Hearst herself was once incarcerated. Hearst is said to be considering this thoughtful offer.